I mean, my theory is this. So there's a dairy animal somewhere inside, like the foam or whatever of this hot tub, like an area you can't get to. So not touching the water, just somewhere in the walls somewhere. Well, it's probably a mouse or something like that. Won't the maggots eventually just finish eating it and it'll be fine, gone?
Skeleton.
Yeah, skeletons don't smell, right? Worst that happens, one floats out one time. But isn't that what'll happen? Like if it smells now, eventually it'll just get eaten and it'll be fine?
I think so.
Seems like that's the theory.
If you can't find it and it's not
Now, we know where.
floating in the
I think we can
water.
get our nose within about 4 inches of where it is.
Oh.
But in that 4 inches, there's stuff. there's stuff.
You got a picture though?
Which one?
The one I sent.
Yeah, I got it. The tooth fairy? Yeah.
You gotta show the class now.
I don't have like a convenient way of showing it on the.
Well, if you're even on your computer,
Because we don't have an Apple TV.
send it by an email, not text.
That's true. So somewhere like down here, right?
Oh.
Well, but like.
The before picture. Yeah, that one.
That is impressive.
The Stitches picture?
I have a Stitches picture he sent me last night.
Oh.
You have like I have the one when he cleaned it last night.
Yeah,
Ew.
That's the one you have.
I asked him if he had any before you guys.
Oh my goodness.
So why is it he couldn't come to class today?
Some emotional scars.
He messaged me, said, I probably won't be in class.
Probably having trouble walking. He doesn't want to use crutches.
He's on used crutches?
No, he doesn't want to use crutches.
What's the freaking tooth fairy? What does he need crutches for? He can float, fly.
With his little wings.
Killing me, people. All right. All right, so we were talking about virtual machines a little bit last time, right? Or was that 2 times ago? What was last time? Last time we went over the exam, then we started talking about virtual machines. Where did we stop off on virtual machines?
I was in class last time because I was taking the test.
Next one. We got here. So we were talking about the early days of virtual machines with COBOL mainframes. Well, so here, just as a quick review, what's the benefit of a virtual machine? What's a benefit of a virtual machine?
Protected from viruses.
Okay, certainly. It gives us allows the host operating system to be protected from bad things that might go on inside the guest operating system, the virtualized operating system. What else? What other benefits are there? Obvious benefit, run more than one operating system at the same time,
Yeah.
right? So Windows Mac world, if you're a Mac user and you need to run something in Windows, which is bound to happen at some point, you can just launch it in a virtual machine and not have to dual boot between 2 operating systems. Okay? It would be nice if Windows users could also do that for Macintosh stuff, but unfortunately Apple doesn't play nice. What other benefits? Anything else you can think of? So certainly protects you from bad crap. Definitely allows you to run more than one OS at once, which can be convenient sometimes. But portability of operating systems. So if you have a virtual machine on, let's say you run it on your home computer and you're traveling, you could take that virtual machine with you and now you have your same environment you had set up on your home computer on your new computer, the computer you're traveling with or something like that. It might be faster or slower depending on the underlying hardware of the computer you're running the virtual machine on. Because remember, virtual machines are using up those resources. That's one of the negatives we'll talk about in a second. But bottom line is you set that environment up once and now it's a portable environment. You take that computer with you. It's another perk. All right, negatives of virtual machines. Slow. They're going to be slower than that operating system running natively on that hardware. We're running it through a virtual middleman. We're running it through a piece of software in the middle, and we're only sharing some, well, hopefully some, of your system resources. Any of you have relatively medium-powered laptops and you've ever tried to run a virtual machine on? Probably notice that it runs very, very, very slow, and then the rest of your computer slows way down as well, because you're sharing a relatively small number of resources across two operating systems. So the machines that best lend themselves to running multiple virtual machines are machines like that Mac Pro down the hall, where you have multiple processors and you have a large bank of RAM, fast hard drives, because even your hard drive is going to be a shared resource in a virtual machine. In fact, maybe that's even the worst shared resource in a virtual machine. We came off talking about file systems shortly before the midterm. And with our modern day hard drives, if you just have a single hard drive in your machine, which is common, right? We haven't moved to this this level. It's actually interesting that we haven't. But we went from one CPU to now multi-core CPUs. So we have more than one CPU. We got a big bank of RAM, and RAM doesn't conflict with each other in terms of individual resources. You just have, buckets of RAM you can put stuff. But hard drives are something that applications are competing for. If you have two different applications that are both going to try to save a file, they're going to be competing for that one resource. And we use the example in class of what if you have a large file you're copying, and then you start copying another large file, and then you see those two competing with each other. They both slow way down and that kind of stuff. So we have something called RAID arrays for hard drives, which allow you to have two or more hard drives in a computer. Those RAIDs can be set up more for performance. They can be set up more for security from a backup perspective, where you could have one mechanical drive die and be able to restore the other ones. But the punchline is, why haven't those become commonplace? How many of you have a computer with a RAID in it? At least two hard drives that are linked to each other in an interesting way, not that you just have two physical hard drives. I mean, many of us have like an external USB drive, right? But I'm talking about having two hard drives inside your computer for a good reason, and they show up as one big drive, or one drive of the same size as any one of the drives. It's not commonplace, right? How many of you have more than one processor in your computer? All of us, right? We all at least have two cores, probably. Any of you have a single core computer somewhere?
I have my
Do you
first
really?
Mac. I do have my first Mac.
Is it an Intel? It's like an Intel Core Solo, or is it older than that?
I think it's a Pentium 4.
You might have hyper-threading on it.
It is. It's hyper-threading and it's 3.6 gigahertz.
Okay.
So it was a good, really good.
Yeah, so it might almost be 1.5 cores. Might fake-see it.
Unless you shut it off.
Right. But in any case, that's become very commonplace, right? 2 cores we just assume is your entry level. And now we have quad cores, and quad cores are kind of our more higher performance. Why haven't we gone that direction with hard drives? Especially when you consider in class, we discussed one of the best ways to increase the speed of your computer is not the processor. It's faster hard drives and enough RAM. But almost always we have more RAM than we need in modern day computers. So if you're going to upgrade your hard drive, you upgrade your computer, you want it to be faster, probably the very first thing you can do to make your computer faster is put a faster hard drive in it. Higher number of RPMs, something like that. So why hasn't it become mainstream to have more than one hard drive?
People haven't realized it yet, so companies are still banking on
like it. Once people realize it, then they'll start making better.
The dual core hard drives. That's probably how it'll be. You know, in a couple of years, you guys are all be sitting there laughing and like, you know, they'll come up with some cool name. It won't be dual core. It'll be like an interesting hard drive technology. They already kind of sort of have it a little bit with the fusion drives, right? We've seen those. You know, half man, half machine. Fusion drives are half solid state, half mechanical, and not half. It's like a tenth solid state, 9/10 mechanical. So a small portion of it is solid state, mainly for your operating system. Things that you're gonna launch really quickly. Everything else is just for big storage. But we've seen it go in that direction, but not two hard drives. Especially as we get to solid state drives where they can fit in a smaller footprint. Somebody's going to come out with this, like, this square looking thing that just has a giant heat sink on it and says, yeah, there's 11 hard drives in there. Go.
What are you running, a server?
No, this is my laptop. I don't use it. All right. So in any case, especially if you're running a virtual machine on an older computer, or laptops are good examples because typically laptops are going to be underpowered compared to the same price point desktops. That's probably less true today than it's ever been, but it's still true. You know, if you're going to spend $3,000 on a laptop versus $3,000 on a desktop, you're going to be able to get more horsepower in a desktop for that same price point. But you're going to be able to get a surprisingly high amount of horsepower in a laptop for that price point. But in any case, virtual machines do share your system resources with the host operating system, and that does become a resource drain. And the place you're going to see it first is probably in your hard drives, because we don't have the extras for that. Most of us have one hard drive that we're sharing. You could think about going and maybe you host your virtual machine on an external hard drive, but now you have the speed problems associated with the interface between the external hard drive and your computer. Talked about that. We talked about USB. We talked about FireWire. The different interface things that you can have between your computer and those hard drives slow it way down. So, if you have an eSATA hard drive, sold one of those yet, Evan? Sell an eSATA hard drive yet? Yeah. Well, you know what eSATA is? Lying? Yeah, but is it faster or slower than the other ones? Faster. Are you just guessing?
No.
All right. I forgive you. Huh? Did you? What about iPad minis? The new minis. And I post about that. My wife's upset because she doesn't like the Air. She likes the minis. I know. They're just sitting there on the shelf. So, in any case, virtual machines, slower is a downside. What other downsides are there? It's actually an interesting downside going on right now. That is something if you run virtual machines, you may have run into, especially as the normal operating system makers, Windows and Apple, have started releasing updates to their software on a much more regular basis. Seems like now we're getting kind of a new version of the operating system every year, or at least a significant update, something like that. One issue we run into is the virtual machine software makers, so the big ones being VMware, and the other one, well, VMware is really the big one because that's across both platforms. You have some open source ones, but VMware has a cost. Then on the Mac side, you have VMware and you have Parallels, and then you have some other open source ones. But let's just use VMware as the example since it's cross-platform. It's for both sides. When a new operating system comes out, for instance, Yosemite came out for Mac a couple weeks ago, I have to go now and buy the updated version of VMware because the old one won't work with Yosemite. So Apple comes out with a new operating system, and I have to go give somebody else money too. Isn't that kind of a weird dynamic nobody's talking about? So I don't know. Kind of seems like it will encourage people to steal. Usually operating systems or software's backwards compatible. Like if you had Microsoft Office from 3 years ago, it's going to run on the newest version of Windows, or the Macintosh version will run on Yosemite, no problem. If they release a software update, the day Yosemite got installed, the very next thing that popped up when I started launching a virtual machine was this version is not compatible with this version of your operating system. Like it just knows if it's greater than this number. I bet you almost anything if you can come up with the hack for just changing the number in the configuration file for the virtual machine, that it's 6 instead of 7 or something like that, it'll just work. It's probably nothing except an integer that's keeping that software from working. Garbage. Okay, well, another kind of a cool benefit, we talked about this, I think I remember from last time, is there kind of is an open standard for virtual machines. And the current companies that sell virtual machine software, they take advantage of this. So for instance, if you're a VMware customer and you're going to switch to Parallels, you can bring your VMware virtual machine over to Parallels and they'll convert it to their format because it's based on an open standard, and vice versa. So you don't have to set it all up again. Maybe another benefit in large companies is deployment of machines becomes very easy. And this goes a two-way street. So for instance, if you're working for a company and you go in and you're the new employee, they can give you a virtual machine, a baseline virtual machine that they set up that works with all their crap, everything minus your personal data you're going to start throwing on there. They can give it to you in 5 minutes. Your machine is ready to go. And then what they give you is basically a dummy terminal, a computer that has minimal individual power, and mostly you're running as a virtual machine on it. There's also servers out there that support a virtual environment, so you actually just remote into the machine. So then you don't even need a very powerful computer at all. So that's one interesting setup. Another interesting setup is from the, and we've probably seen this from a business perspective. And if any of you, how many of you have ever hosted on like GoDaddy or something like that? And you get a virtual private server. They're the more expensive ones. You go to GoDaddy to get host a website. It's like $5 a month or something like that. And then you look at the more expensive things. They're like $50 a month. It's your virtual private servers, VPSs. So with a VPS, you're given complete control of your environment. You have full access to the operating system, as opposed to the cheaper ones, which are a shared environment. You and your 5,000 friends are all sharing the same operating system for your website. Is that a bad thing? Do any of you host websites anywhere? None of you have a website?
I pay for a website.
Huh?
For college students, we can't afford fees.
$5 a month is affordable, even for college
That takes
students.
away from the $15 a month for MMOs.
For MMOs. So if you are hosting with somebody, even if some of them can get like $1.09, actually you can do free. Most of them will do free for a month as long as you're willing to let them wrap your web page with advertisements on the outside. But in any case, when you're dealing with a shared environment like that, you deal with the configuration file for PHP that everybody else is using, the configuration file for Apache that everybody else is using, the default mail sender thing, which probably has some sort of limitations on it for how many emails you can send and things like that. So you're paying less per month, but you have basically no control over the environment beyond the default. And for maybe 90% of the people, the default is perfectly acceptable. No harm, no foul. Well, the next jump up would be to like a virtual private server, where now you're still sharing a portion of the resources of a physical computer. So on the shared host things that we just described, you're one of, let's say, 500 people who they've put on that one computer to share the resources. but you're all using the one operating system. When you're a virtual private server customer, I'm just going to guess and say maybe you're one of 4 people sharing a single CPU, a single computer, and they've split that 4 ways based on the configuration you purchased. How many CPUs, what the speed of them are, how much RAM, that kind of stuff. Because when you really go and you look at, let's just do this real quick. If you go to GoDaddy, do not want to download Flash right now. Let's see. We're going to go to product hosting, virtual private servers. So you can get a virtual private server that's running Linux, or you can get one that's running Windows. So here we'll go with the Windows one since that's something we're more used to. So 2 gigabytes of RAM. They give you amount of storage, a bandwidth, how much data you can transfer, that kind of stuff. They usually let you configure them somewhere. So you don't get to choose your CPU in this case. So this $150 a month, this is probably a full computer. You're probably the only dude using this. Is my guess. Let's click on one of these and see if it lets us modify it at all. Ooh, you can lock in your price. But whatever. You're basically buying a portion of a single computer that they're virtualizing for you. Let me see if Linux lets you choose the CPU speed. Usually they used to let you choose the CPU speed. And see, here's a selling point. This is where we're going with those hard drives, Tim. Processors are amped up. Our servers are amped up and ready to go with the latest gen Intel. Oh, they can't even say latest generation. Latest gen, amped up and gen. That's what the cool kids are doing. Put it in orange, charge $10 more a month, done. All right. So in any case, from a business perspective, a company can now sell hosted space. So that's kind of our generic hosting type thing we just looked at, where everybody in the world might need, well, at least in the professional world, might need a website. And some websites are going to need more capabilities than others. So if you're setting up a simple website for a dentist's office, the $5 a month shared host is probably sufficient. And just to kind of give you an idea along these lines, because these are all kind of, even that is an example of virtualizing a shared host. So for instance, I have an account with GoDaddy, and I have several different things on there, but one of the things we have is a shared host. And under that shared host, I can put other domain names on there. I can host people's websites. I can host, I think, up to 1,000 websites under my one shared host for $5 a month. So for those of you who are looking for like business ideas, if you understand that world, how many of you have set up websites and hosted domains and things like that? 1.5 people? Okay. From what you remember, was it very hard? You click like 2 buttons. Buy new domain, host new domain, tell where in your file system you want it to be hosted. So it's something that's actually pretty easy to do, but most people don't think of it as being easy, right? Just like Best Buy, you can go there and have them, you pay them $50 to install your RAM. Right? Well, grandma doesn't want to install RAM. Why shouldn't Best Buy charge $50 to install the RAM? How many of you have ever installed RAM in a computer? Really easy, right? Probably the easiest thing to install, but that doesn't mean grandma wants to do it. So from a, if you're going to host websites for people or set up websites for people, especially if you get, I'm kind of giving you a business idea in today's world, if you get very good with like a product like WordPress, which is free, that allows the content management system for setting up websites. If you get pretty skilled at that, you can pay $5 a month to GoDaddy. That's your entire business cost. It's $5 a month. That plus your time. Then you can go and sell websites to people. You can buy their domain name. You can charge them how much ever you want for them for you to set up their website for them under WordPress. Charge them a monthly hosting fee. You're $5 a month. You can easily charge somebody $50 a month for. Then you get 50 people, each paying you $50 a month. And now you got a pretty legitimate business, right? All because you're leveraging a shared environment. Those places, those dentist's office or small business websites, they don't need some of the features that are provided by a virtual private server-based web server. That, for instance, when I made the jump from our shared host to our virtual private server, it was one feature that caused us to have to do that jump. We had a dynamic site that required user logins. And when you register, they send you an email to click this link to finish registering, right? Well, if you go to a website and you go to fill out the form to register and you say, it says, oh, we've just sent you an email, go and check your email to confirm who you are, that kind of stuff. How long do you expect it to take for that email to arrive? Not long, right? Certainly less than 1 minute. That's about the limit of what we're going to wait. If it didn't show up in 1 minute, something went wrong. Okay? Well, by default, and this isn't just a GoDaddy thing, the shared host for GoDaddy, I think this is probably pretty common, it would take as much as about 20 minutes because they purposely put a delay on their mail relay so that the shared host customers couldn't abuse it. They couldn't use it to send out batch emails and stuff like that. And that was a feature that then was sacrificed because of it. So they didn't want their customers to be abusing that feature by writing scripts to send a zillion emails. And because of that, now also the things that only can send one email for perfectly legitimate reasons now take 20 minutes. Well, if you're going to run a WordPress site that doesn't require user logins, which most don't, even though WordPress allows you to have user logins, most WordPress sites are basically set up to look good. And there's only one user login, and that's the admin account. Not a problem. But our particular account we were using required users to set up an account, blah, blah, blah. So because of that, we had to go from $5 a month to $50 a month for just that email feature. So that registration happened quickly. So that's kind of an idea on the little features that can pivot those things. Because on a virtual private server, you have control over those emails because they limit you on bandwidth. They say you get 2 terabytes a month of bandwidth. If you want to use your 2 terabytes to send 5 zillion emails, cool. If you want to do it through downloading files, that's fine too, whatever. Okay, so from a business perspective, selling virtualized stuff is a big deal. The company that I sold my software company to in October is a company called Out of the Box Technology. And so now they have a software side of things called Out of the Box Apps, which used to be my company. But before that, they had a technology side of it. They were an IT company. And they kind of specialize in a product called Quickbooks. And what Quickbooks is an accounting software. But many, many, many small and medium-sized businesses require QuickBooks. That's kind of like the right tool for them to do their accounting. Well, one of the things that Out of the Box offers is virtualized QuickBooks servers. So rather than a company having to set up and maintain their own local machine with QuickBooks on it, now they can just have a remote login that Out of the Box gives them. They double-click on an icon, it launches a window on their computer that takes them right to their virtual machine in the cloud that has their QuickBooks on it. That's always up to date, that's always backed up, that's always virus protected, all that crap. So people pay for that, but now they don't have to own their own hardware, they don't have to make sure they do their own updates and stuff. That becomes kind of a wash. Maybe for them, from a cost perspective, but from Out of the Box's perspective, consider this. Let's say that you are offering that service. And let's say you have 100 clients, each who are paying you a monthly fee for virtualized QuickBooks server. that they can log in as their own copy of Windows. Basically looks like you're remoted into Windows, right? How many machines do you need to support that? What kind of system resources do you need to support if you have 100 customers who are each paying you a monthly fee for a virtualized QuickBooks environment? Is it one? Worst case scenario is what? All 100 people connecting at the exact same time. If you're going to want to support that, you're going to need a lot of machines, right? You're going to have to decide what's your minimum requirement, for performance, and then divide that up amongst a bunch of machines. But realistically, you have 100 people you're selling this to. How many people do you think are on at one time? Just kind of guess. Handful?
Maybe 25.
Max. I mean, I think that's even unlikely. Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking 5 or 6. Because this isn't something you sit in all day. It's something you go into at the end of the day and you run your reports. Or you run your reports midday, something like that. So, and you're maybe only on it for 10 minutes. So the chance of all 100 clients being on it at once are slim to none. Even 20 being on at once, slim to none. So you could probably leverage what you have across a lot of people with a relatively small amount of hardware, right? Nothing keeps you from doing that same thing with VMware. If I show you here on VMware's site, so this would be the product that they would use there. Let's see, which one do I want to show you? Maybe vSphere. So I think this is the right product. This is a product that they sell that allows you to set up on a single machine or a cluster of machines. So you would have a pretty beefy server in the middle that allows this guy to host multiple virtual servers, virtual machines, rather. Well, and it would take incoming connections. But you could support 100 with a machine that can maybe only at one time support 6. Something like that. And probably pull it off 95% of the time. And this happens. And we see it in other areas of technology as well. We actually, outside of technology. How many of you have ever had a reservation at a hotel and you showed up and they told you they didn't have any rooms? But I had a reservation. It's never happened to any of you? It's more common than you want to think. So what do hotels do? Hotels make money if what? They're sold out. So they overbook their rooms. Because they're going to assume that there's a range that based on their experience, a certain percentage of people are going to cancel. And they don't want to have the lost revenue. So they overbook their rooms. They probably have a hotel or two down the street that they have a agreement with that they can send overbooked people to for some sort of, profitable fee for both places. But you could show up to a place and have a reservation and get there and they don't have the room.
You're not ready.
Wouldn't that tick you off? No, they don't even have the room, especially at big convention centers. Go ahead.
Or even flights. They do that a lot.
Exact same thing with flights. That's probably something that people run into more often. You get to, you've booked a flight. You even picked your seat. Nope. Then they come around. They want to know, when people fly standby, right? Then they offer you the free voucher if you are willing to give your seat up. Any of you have ever given a seat up for a free voucher? Man, see, I'd do that in a heartbeat. I have to deal with my wife. It's like, you're telling me I get a free ticket anywhere I want in the world? All I have to do is wait till tomorrow and you're going to put me up in a hotel? And feed me? Cool. All right, so
I was offered that, but it wasn't a big rush. It was just like, you get $200 off your next purchase.
Yeah, that's.
well, fine, even that. So that would be more of a.
But then you gotta pay for your own hotel. And you're $100 there.
They wouldn't put you up in a hotel. Really?
Well, the time they offered me, it was just like, you can take a flight later today.
Okay, so basically, they would give you $200 for future travel, and you would just catch a flight later today. So you just had to sit in an airport for a little bit.
Sure. I didn't take it, but I'm sure.
Why didn't you take it?
I was on time with it.
Oh, so it just wasn't. You couldn't. Yeah, makes sense. But in any case, we see that. We see them overbooking flights all the time, right? We even see this in technology. So this kind of spins us back to internet. How many of you have heard the people who argue that, well, DSL is better than cable because DSL is a dedicated bandwidth and cable's shared? We heard that before? So cable modems, you share your bandwidth with everybody in your neighborhood. It's called a node. Okay, so every neighborhood has its, or we say neighborhood, but basically has a whole bunch of people that are sharing that bandwidth, whether it's internet or even cable TV. So how many of you have cable TV at your house? You ever been watching a high definition channel and it pops up and say, are you still watching this? Press OK to keep watching. There's only, because of the bandwidth of their network, they can only show so many high definition channels simultaneously. So they check to make sure you're still actually staring at your TV, because if you're not, then they're going to stop broadcasting that because you might be the last person on the block watching that channel. That way they've just opened up a spot for another high definition channel to be displayed. So whenever you've turned on your TV and you go to the high definition, one of the high definition channels, if you've ever seen that problem where it says, this channel is unavailable right now. And you hit OK a bunch of times, you restart your machine, you restart your cable box, and you don't know what's up. That's what's up. It's unavailable because all the high definition slots in your neighborhood are already taken up. So cable is a shared technology. So we just talked about on the internet side, cable modem internet is a shared technology. So when you buy from Time Warner, you're getting up to 50 megabit per second wideband internet, super awesome, killer, blah blah blah. But then the people who are proponents of DSL are going to say, well, yeah, that's the maximum speed you can get, but it's shared, so you might not get that speed. Now keep in mind, your download speed is only as fast as whoever's uploading to you, right? So if you have a 50 megabit per second internet pipe to download, and you're downloading off somebody who's sharing MP3s over their dial-up connection, you're not pulling 50 megabit. Okay? You're pulling 3 kilobytes. That's what you're pulling. So cable is shared. Well, DSL is not. It's a dedicated circuit. So when you go to AT&T and you buy their 3 megabit per second DSL dedicated circuit, like, oh, that's my 3 megabits. Everywhere I go, I'll download at 3 megabits. Well, now if you're downloading off some dude who's sharing their stuff off dial-up, same problem. But what they don't tell you is they sell DSL just like they sell hotel rooms. We're going to kind of bank on the fact that everybody's not going to try to max their internet connection at the same time. So fine, we've sold 10,000 3 megabit per second circuits. We don't have the bandwidth to support all 10,000 of them being on at the same time. We're just going to hope and deal with complaints as they come. How does that make you feel on the back end?
Yeah.
That's the way the technology world works. It's the way the real world works. How upset would you be if you had planned this whole trip? You get to your destination and they say, oh, I know you had a reservation, we don't have any rooms. Wouldn't that tick you off? You did everything you were supposed to do. Well, upset customers are part of their cost of doing business. They try to do the best they can by you, whatever, but at the very least, they made their profit for that night. You were the sacrificial lamb, if you will. So technology works the same way. So DSL versus cable, one being shared, one not, really should have zero impact on your decision for those technologies. Because the one that's not shared, they're overselling. The one that is shared, they're overselling. So at the end of the day, the amount of bandwidth you're going to get is based on the fastest they've offered you. So that's the maximum. So you can think of it more as a cap instead of a dedicated or non-dedicated. It's a cap. So it's the maximum they've sold you. But, well, it's going to be the higher of this. The maximum they've sold you or the lower of these. Maximum they've sold you or speed the other person's uploading at or amount of bandwidth that's left over from all the people you're sharing from. Whatever one of those three numbers are lowest, that's the speed you'll get. Go ahead.
Let's say you have 30 megabits per second and the person across the street is 50, but you're both, but you happen to know you're getting maybe 20. Is he getting, because he has up to 50, is he getting a little bit more, or is he getting that same?
Depends where you're downloading from.
Let's say downloading from the same place.
Okay, well, how fast is the same place delivering it?
Let's say 30.
If you have 20, so you're paying, how much are you paying for? So the place can give it to you at 30, right?
The place can give it to you as much as you need it, as much as you can get it from it. Let's just say that.
Okay, so the place has unlimited upload for this example.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
You're paying for 30.
Yep.
Guy across the street's paying for 50. But you're still on the same neighborhood.
Yep.
Type thing. And you know that you're getting it at 20 megabits.
Chances are you're both getting the same speed. But there's so much bandwidth to go around right now that that scenario is probably unlikely. But you know, the more likely thing is the place you're downloading it from can upload it at a total of, you know, let's say 500 megabit per second, and you're one of many people downloading from there, and you're capped at 20 from them. The guy across the street, even though he has a higher bandwidth than you, is probably going to be also capped at 20. Something like that. Okay. So in any case, from a virtual side of things, you know, businesses exist like that where they oversell their hardware. Why should a business have 4,000 computers to support a worst case scenario when they can just inconvenience their customers sometimes? And in and of itself, isn't that a science? If a place starts recognizing that they're inconveniencing their customers more than they would like, they add a little bit more hardware until they hit the balance again, right? Better that than pay a bunch of money for a bunch of hardware that you hardly ever use up front. If you're a consumer, you don't like to hear that, but the other side is if they have to buy more hardware, then your fees go up. They charge you more money to support the amount of hardware they have to maintain. We don't like that either. Consumers, we want our cake and we want to eat it too, right? Cheap prices, unlimited bandwidth. In fact, just make it free. And I'll still complain. Okay. Just see where we're going next and we'll call it quits. I've already talked about that. All right, we'll pick up here. We'll look at the VMware architecture at the very beginning next class, and then we'll get to Java Virtual Machine. I'll see everybody on Wednesday.